Welcome to another episode of the 100% podcast with me, your host, Harry Purdy. And today I am doing an episode on grassroots football and my passion for it on my own. It's something that I've had a thought wave and a brain wave around doing. And for those of you who know the history of this podcast, it will correlate with the history of the Grassroots Guy podcast as well. And you can hear me talk as an average 33-year-old footballer around his experiences in men's football and a year managing in women's football, and why I love it so much, and why football in general and playing football and being involved in grassroots football has had a massive knock-on effect within my journey of who I've become today, and also how it supported the journey of maybe when I wasn't at my happiest self and I was struggling a little bit. I've always had a passion for grassroots football. One of the memories of being a small child was being dragged up to Montacute Rec and stood watching Montacute FC at the time, who my dad was a secretary of and a player before that, playing when the pitch was the other way round, the metal huts that those who played at Montacute when I was manager there will remember, and even the opposition players that used to come along, they used to hate it because there was no shower facilities on site, and definitely gave the home team a bit of an advantage because in some ways you got into the opposition's head before you'd even started. But today I want to cover why grassroots football's had a massive impact on me, the power of purpose, the power of team building, the outlet of competitiveness, and why I think it can still benefit in the 21st century. It's something that I'm essentially and insanely passionate about. And hopefully, for those of you listening, whether you're a men's footballer or you just like watching football, or women's footballer, again, or a woman who just likes watching football and they've got an interest in what I've got to say about it, it is something that you can relate to. So the first topic that I want to chat about today is the health impact of grassroots football and why it would... and why it has a positive impact on me today, and why it probably even subconsciously has an impact on you as well now. I'm just going to shut the curtains. There we go. And it's obvious ones. It's an obvious form of cardio and it's an obvious form of exercise, right? If I look back to my biggest version of myself, if it wasn't for like playing five-a-side or going along to training when I was Montacute manager, I would never have had the exercise in my life. I probably would have become bigger. And then without touching on it too much, we know the story around the cup final epiphany that I had, like why wasn't I playing in the game? It was grassroots football that gave me that motivation to get up on the morning of that cup final and go for my first 1 mile run that obviously I couldn't run a mile of. So on the element of exercise, it's something that, if we look at the framework of 100%, it's something that's been in place ever since I can remember. The other thing is the effect of community. As a human being, we are absolutely driven by a sense of community. And actually, one thing that I dislike about the modern era and the 21st century is the kind of I'm all right Jack mentality that seems to have inserted itself into some elements of society. And as much as I do think that focusing on yourself and focusing on your own health is really important, at the same time, that can only be nourished and only be nurtured by a powerful community around you. And although we can come onto community a little bit further on into this podcast, and the powerful effect of community, if you look at it that way, is actually having a community that you can rely on, having a community that you can communicate with, having a community that you see on a regular basis and you feel part of, is a massive benefit and positive impact on our health, whether that be from a physical standpoint, but more so on the mental standpoint as well. I also think as well, from a health perspective, that having any form of mental health challenge can be assisted and can be helped by having a purpose. I've certainly felt that in my life. And although it's a small way of getting a purpose, having some form of team that you're involved with on a weekend and every weekend basis, whether that be as a player, coach, manager, whether it be just going and watching your team, right? Even if that is at grassroots level, it gives you something in the diary that you can focus on ahead of you. So when when you are at maybe your lowest in the middle of the week, you've got the football to focus on at the end of the week, which can keep you motivated and keep you focused on something that's giving you a bit of a drive and giving you a bit of purpose to make sure that you're looking after yourself in the week to then take that into the football at the weekend. As well, on a health perspective, knowing that you're involved in a team can keep you accountable for staying healthy and staying fit, right? If it wasn't for that epiphany that I had before that cup final and wanting to be part of that team, it may never have happened, right? All of this 100% journey that I've been on, the journey of dropping from 23 stone to where I'm at now, to winning cup finals as a player for Ilchester, for playing at county level for a little time being and actually doing okay in it. Before falling out of favour, but that's football. That's the ruthless side of football, which we won't touch on today, because that's maybe not the positive side of it. But on the flip side, it's enabled me to be accountable and stay focused on what I want to achieve on the pitch. And one thing that I'll always say, and one thing I'll always fall back on, it doesn't matter what level of football you play at. If it's your best level of football that you're going to play at, then it's your best level of football, right? And I would say that to anybody who thinks that maybe they take it too seriously, or why do I care and other people don't. That's good. I think that's good. That's a good sense of drive that you've got within you, and something that, again, can keep you accountable moving forward in the sport that millions of people love. But again, the drop-off in participation in grassroots football and maybe grassroots sport as a whole over the country is something that I perceive and I do believe is a negative thing. And then as well, linking with purpose is it does give you a focus, something that you can build your fitness level around, build your mindset around. Like I said, football can be a ruthless sport the higher you go into it. Are you somebody that can deal with that setback? Are you somebody that can be resilient and bounce back? You may not be when you get into football at men's level, but after a few things that you've failed at, essentially, I think the biggest lessons that we get are normally from failure. So football can give us that element as well, like from a mindset, from a focus and a resilient point of view. So that's my little health subject covered. We've covered the obvious bit, which is, of course, it gives you a sense of exercise and a reason to exercise. Community spirit, definitely a positive impact on your health, and something that I think should be cherished and should be shared more, especially in the 21st century. I posted the other day, like, community over politics every day of the week, and there's so much focus on the negative side of politics at the moment that maybe community needs to be our focus, and maybe we should start putting more focus on the good things that are happening around us with not just sport but other events and those kind of things as well. Hello YouTube, I'm stopping you in the middle of this episode because a lot of you who stick around and watch my podcast episodes aren't yet subscribed. So do me a favour before you carry on watching the rest of this episode, and just click the subscribe button. And you don't even need to watch every episode, but what it does do is it boosts this channel and it helps me a long, long way. Enjoy the rest of the show. Sense of purpose, 100%. Having that focus going into the weekend and knowing that you've got a big match at the weekend can give you that feeling and not make you think that you don't have a target to aim towards, which I think, as somebody that has struggled severely with mental health in the past, that having a purpose, and without that purpose at the weekend, it would have definitely made the effects of how I was feeling at the time even worse. Accountability as well, staying fit for your teammates, staying fit for you, staying fit for those big games that you hope are coming on towards you at the end of the season, or even in a county cup match. I think it's really, like, it's something that you see the lads that take football that little bit serious, which I really appreciate as well, that they're going for 5Ks, they're going to the gym, they're turning up to circuits class because they want to have a positive influence on their match at the weekend. And again, the final point I touched on there was the focus element, the resilience element, and the mindset element of football can only have a positive impact on you as a person if you're involved in it. Okay, so descending further into community now. We can link this with like team spirit as well, but one of the first things I'm going to put on the top of the list here is the bants. Is the humour element that's involved in playing with a team. I think some of the biggest and best memories. This isn't a Montacute FC podcast, but I'd love to do one of those actually. Is the memories of being in the changing room with the lads that I cherished and loved and spent a lot of time with. If you think about the 7 years that I was a manager, obviously players came and went, but there was a core group of people that, Jesus Christ, we had some amazing memories and some funny times. And although it would have been really childish, it would have been like also it's memories that we can look back on and laugh about still today when we meet up and talk about it. But I think that is one of the things that I saw one of my contacts, Luke Harrison, say that when you're struggling and if you're not feeling the best on a mental health perspective, actually focusing on humor and focusing on comedy and focusing on laughter is one of the quickest ways out of that slump. And actually the laughs and the banter that was thrown around and is thrown around in grassroots football it can only be a benefit. It doesn't matter whether that's like the laughs that kids have at real grassroots junior football and in the senior game as well. I think it's really, really important. And even when you compare that to recently in the Everton Man United game, obviously serious point that Idrissa Gueye and Michael Keane got into a little bit of a to-do on the pitch, and Gueye got sent off by like tapping Keane in the face. Ridiculous sending off, but the funny side of it that they've taken after the fact can only be a positive thing, right? The other thing about the community and the team spirit is camaraderie. I think again, one of the biggest things, knowing that you've got a group of people that are on your team for that 90 minutes that are backing you all the way. I've brought lads together that may not have even crossed each other's paths on a day-to-day basis, but if they were to get into an altercation or if they were to hear their teammate getting shit from somebody else on another team and they're going to stick up for them, that's only a positive thing. And it's not about toxic masculinity or like being too manly. That's just something that I think is an innate feeling that you get when you're on a team with somebody, and it doesn't matter at what level that is. Knowing that you've got people on your back on your team that give a shit is a real positive thing, and it gives you that sense of belonging, and it gives you that feeling that, you know what, if you get into a spot of bother today, I know that my teammates are going to come over and back me up. And actually, I think that on the flip side, when you're in a team that you don't feel that in, it's only a negative thing. And I don't think that any successful team would definitely have that sense of camaraderie where you know that if you're gonna get into a war on the pitch, if you're gonna get into battle, if the tackles are gonna be flying in, you want to know that your team can handle that. Whereas on the flip side, if you don't think your team can handle that, you know you're going to be in trouble. So I think that sense of community and that sense of team spirit can only be like promoted, and it can only be more of a positive with that camaraderie side of things. The other thing as well, I've already half mentioned it, is the amount of new people that I've met and created contacts with and know through local grassroots football is really good. And it's not about having a massive circle of people that like you always communicate with, but actually being in a community where you know the chairman of the league or you know the manager of the other team. And of course there are people that like you wouldn't go out of your way to speak to in the football circle. That's sport and that's football and that's rivalry. It's a healthy thing. But the amount of new people that you meet, the amount of opportunities that potentially you can get, whether that be on a work front or whether you go out for some drinks with your teammates after and then you meet like the love of your life, like it can only be a positive thing. And I've seen all of those kinds of stories develop over the years, and I've seen people develop as part of not because of me, but just through the environment that they've been in, and a team that only want the best for them as well. And then the other thing as well is it's related back to failures and then also successes, is when you share highs and lows with a group of people, that only makes you closer. And obviously on a sporting front, it can be even more true. But this is the same in life as well. There's a crossover between life and within it, just in sport in general. But for this episode specifically, my love and why I love grassroots football, and I know it sounds ridiculous, but still at 33, I want to go out and be competitive, because it's been such a positive element of my life, and something that without it, who knows what situation I would be in now. Obviously hindsight and stuff, but yeah, I think it's really important. But on the Montacute side of things as well, or even Ilchester, like there was times as a player and helping Fraser out at Ilchester where it was hard. There were two sides of the team, if you like, lads that wanted to take it seriously and lads that didn't. And there was those moments in the changing rooms after losing cup finals and stuff were difficult. And then, of course, when you go and you look back at those moments where those negative times led to the success that Fraser had over the 7 years that he was manager, and the success that it enabled us to have as players. And then on the flip side at Montacute as well, the success of the treble year, and then maybe not the success of when the team started to break apart, and people started to go different ways. We did amazing to carry on, but sharing those lows with those people as well, with those players and my friends, creates memories that always feel heightened, and you feel lucky to have when you look back on it now. And then the other thing, and the third part of that is we're looking at skill building now. So when you think about it from a life and growth perspective, being a manager at 18, it put me into a situation that probably most 18-year-olds wouldn't have experienced, and that was managing men who were essentially volunteering their time, but also earning their respect as well. I remember one of my players. I won't mention names, but I remember one of the players that I got to come along to a training session at Montacute early in the Montacute era, and I was running the session. I'd had a couple of things planned, obviously very new to the experience of being a grassroots manager, but everyone essentially was pissing about, like just shooting, not really taking the session too seriously. And I remember like literally putting my foot down, literally getting everybody in the changing room, and was like, if you lot ain't going to take this seriously, I'm going to fucking go home and we'll call it on the head, shall we? And I think having the audacity and having the balls although 18, having the balls to do that at 18 to some like mid-30s lads and people who'd been around the game a long time and played at a good level, earned me some respect, and it earned me a leadership credential that maybe I didn't have before. I had the confidence to set up a football team. I thought that I would be okay at it, but actually then putting that into practice and speaking to people like 15 years older than me and telling them what to do definitely earned their respect. So that's really cool, and that's where you can earn and learn some skills with regards to life skills, right? And learning life skills. And I think emotional regulation is one of them. When you're in high pressure situations, although it is only grass football, we all feel nerves. We all want to be disciplined. And if you lose your discipline, you learn from that failure, right? I've been sent off on a couple of times when I've lost my head, and you never want to go through that again. Because at the end of the day, if you lose your discipline, it's a bit embarrassing, isn't it? Because you've let your teammates down, and sometimes you've let yourself down and the people watching you as well. So there's emotional regulation. There's your discipline that you learn from it. There's the skills regarding how to deal with other people that you learn from it. There's confidence and leadership skills that you can get from grassroots football. And again, a respect for team ethic. I think that's something that goes over, like something that's overlooked. And for somebody that's worked in an isolated job, I miss the team camaraderie of even having work people that you can go in and throw a bit of banter around with, right? So I think that's something that can be overlooked in modern life, and why I think, again, that grassroots football has such a massive place and should have, not just football, by the way. Like, I want this to be a crossover between cricket, between going out and having a round of golf with your mates, maybe a bit more chilled out that, but rugby, whatever your sport is that you maybe used to have a passion about, this is my call out to you to be like, go out and play it again, even if it's five-a-side. Like, just let out that competitive spirit. Because as a summary, I think specifically for men, it has been World International Men's Day, really. I believe that as a man, I need some form of competition. And again, it's not about being and I don't even believe I should have to justify myself with this, right? But I don't. It's not about toxic masculinity and needing competition and like going out and wanting to smash fucking 10 bells of shit out of each other. It's about that competitive edge, and how I get that out now is by play, or have always got that out is by playing football and other things. Like obviously I had a bit of cricket involved in my grassroots sporting as well. But one question that I do have is that I don't have the evidence of this, but it's just a question that I have and something I always think about. Men's mental health stats are constantly on the rise. Yeah, we lose far too many men every year due to mental health and suicide. But also on the decline is the involvement and participation in sport locally. And I just wonder, it's a question that I'm putting out there. I wonder whether there is a correlation between the two and whether there is something that you could evidence that if you look back at the Yeovil leagues of 30 years ago, there's like 7 divisions and now we've got 3. So it's just a question that I have and something that I do feel passionate about. I do wish that the participation of sport continued to rise, and I understand, of course, why there are reasons, and I do understand that life does move on and things change, and you know what, it's a healthy debate to have. But my stance is I love it. I think that football and grassroots sport has a massive place to nurture your, like if I'm to use my language, to nurture your feeling of 100%, but realistically having your outlet and feeling that sense of purpose and feeling that sense of connectivity with other people and then having a knock-on effect and a positive effect on health, on your life skills, on your community can only be a positive thing. So that's it for me. And I want to just share this little memory I have of when Ilchester weren't that successful, but when I was also at one of the lowest parts of my life, I remember being like obviously in a sense of like war with my own brain and kind of doubting everything that I was doing, from like my output with work to where I was going and who I was and all of those things that I think a lot of us have had experience with. And just scoring a goal at the weekend, it sounds so ridiculous to speak about it now, but just scoring that goal at the weekend and having that positive impact on a game, but then B, sharing that moment with my teammates. I remember getting like full body goosebumps at that moment. It was like a tap in. I think my good pal Jamie Gibson gets on the end of a corner, heads it down, and I've tapped it in from 2 yards in and gone away, like releasing all of that emotion that had been bottled up with me in that week. And it was such a big moment for me at the time. Like I looked at that moment on the pitch and it was like everything is still okay. Like whatever's going on in your brain right now, like obviously it's a self-talk, everything that was going on in that week was proved wrong by the fact that the actions that I'd taken, I'd turned up to football, I'd taken it seriously, I'd then impacted the game positively and got on the score sheet. It proved it all wrong. All of that negative chatter, which isn't real, it's just another version of you that is there to be proven wrong in some aspects. Yeah, I just wanted to share that at the end of this podcast today, because although it sounds like a small moment, it's one of those moments that you look back on and maybe you can see why I'm so passionate about it. But if you have enjoyed this today's episode, please go over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and on YouTube and drop a like and subscribe to the show. And because again, it helps the algorithm. And if you've got something that you can relate to, if you agree with me or you want to challenge me on something, I'd love you to do that as well. But I hope you all have a great day. Make sure you click that like button and I'll see you here with an episode very soon. Take care.